Welcome to our Devos. On day 2 here, we are looking at straight talk from the Savior. This is from Mark chapter 12. If you've been in our Mark series, we've been in there for over 12 weeks, and we've been covering different parts of the series. And now we're going to shift to probably one of the most controversial things that you're going to hear in these devotions, but I don't write the news, I just deliver it. I want to talk to you about God, government, and godlessness. God, government, and godlessness. Let's take a look at a situation that happens when Jesus is asked about taxes. It says in Mark chapter 12, verse 13 through 14, "And they sent to him some of the Pharisees and some of the Herodians to trap him in his talk." So you don't see a lot of these people when they're sincere. Mark lets them know they're sincere, like the case of the rich young ruler, he's sincere. But it says that they're going to trap him. They're trying to essentially discredit him even still towards the end of his ministry here. And it says, "And they came and they said to him, 'Teacher, we know that you are true and you do not care about anyone's opinion. For you are not swayed by appearances, but truly teach the way of God.'" Now, I don't think that that's sincere at all. But they are now trying to get him to answer a question. A lot of times Jesus answers a question with another question. So he's going to do that here, except what he says is so brilliant. And it really is going to speak a lot to where we are in our political climate. "Is it lawful," they say, "to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay them or should we not?" So now they're pushing him like, yes or no. This is not well, let's think about this. Just tell us, yes or no, do we pay the taxes? Now, you need to understand something about this that most of us never, ever understood. And here's what you need to understand. You think, and I think, that the government that we are living in right now is the worst government that has ever existed. I know if you're an American and you're a patriot, you're like, we're living in a godless society. You know, there's abortion, there's gay marriage, there's all this stuff, all the things we've talked about. You know, these are the things we stand strong on. And the government and the church are on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to these things. And there's something that happens with people that is a phenomenon when you're not looking at the history. It's something called chronological snobbery. It's when you kind of think that you would have behaved differently in a different time, that you would have behaved, like this is similar to saying like during the Holocaust, if you're a German person, you're like, I would have never stood by and watched Jewish people being mistreated. I wouldn't. Well, it's kind of looking at history through the lens of enlightenment and saying that you would do different. Now, I say all that to say this is something similar about what goes on with our government. We tend to think that our government right now is the most evil government, the most corrupt government, the most horrible government that ever existed and ever will exist. But here's what I want to remind you of, and this is what's really important. Jesus burst onto the scene in the flesh during one of the most brutal reigns of a very corrupt, wicked, and twisted Roman government. I am not exaggerating. You say, well, how do you know, Pastor Sam, that the Romans were so bad? Just take a look at history. Look at the Colosseums that they built and how they had Christians actually going against lions and torturing them for entertainment. Look at what they did with children, how they discarded children. And Christians would take the children in. Like this is a practice that was happening back then. Look at how they handled things like bribery and things of that nature and things that we see happening even in the Gospels. The Roman government was corrupt. It was evil. It was a godless government. So it stands to reason, of course, they should rebel against the government. Now, they have Jesus in a very, very, very difficult spot. He has tons of people listening to him, and they're asking, well, who should you pay taxes? Should you pay to Caesar? Should you offer those taxes? And keep in mind that if Jesus says no, he has committed a capital crime. You were not allowed to speak against the government. In fact, one of the problems with the Jewish folks at the time is they thought the Messiah was going to overthrow the Roman government. So here is the Messiah, and they're waiting for him to see what he's going to say about taxes. Are you going to really pay to this godlessness that's going on, the torture, and they crucify people, and they, abandon babies, and the way they do the tax? Are you going to really play into this system? This is Jesus' response. Pay attention. It says in verse 15 through 17, knowing their hypocrisy, he said to them, Why put me to this test? Bring me a denarius and let me look at it. And they brought one. And he said to them, whose likeness and inscription is this? And they said to him, Caesar's. And Jesus said, render to Caesar's the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And they marveled at him. Here's why. The denarius featured, and you could Google this, there's a picture of Caesar, and Caesar on the denarius is depicted as being a god. This is a blasphemous anti-God coin. It would be like me giving you a coin and it has a picture of, pick whatever politician you want. We'll go with a conservative one first. It will be like it has George W. Bush on the coin, and it says, in George we trust, and he is holy, and he is perfect, and you have to use this money. You're like, this is blasphemous. He is not God. And pick a Democrat one, Joe Biden on the coin, and Joe we trust, and it shows Joe in this heavenly abiding thing. This is a blasphemous. Remember, Caesar was considered to be like God. They didn't believe in one single God. So they were believing in the political system that the leaders were actually like God. So this is blasphemous. And you're thinking Jesus is going to throw this coin away, right? And just say you shouldn't pay taxes, right? And you should just kind of not go by the system, right? What does he say? He says, render unto Caesar what's Caesar's. He made the coin, it's his, you have to pay it to him. It's bearing his likeness, you have to pay it to him. And this flies in the face of some American patriotism, I have to say. Because so many of us are vocal about how much we hate the government, hate the current establishment. I don't think there's anyone that's happy about anything that's going on. I'm not. I'm just as disgusted. And me and Pastor Mike speak about this stuff all the time. But I'm a law-abiding citizen. And that government has been installed by God. The reason why this government has been allowed, and I've said this before, is I think that our government is the way it is, and a lot of the world governments are the way that they are, because it's a form of God's judgment on this world. We have fallen away from God, and now we have governmental officials that are simply following suit. And when government is corrupt, we are living within that corruption. Look at the book of Judges. You can see exactly how many times God permits a wicked nation to go over top of a godly nation because of their disobedience. Well, here we are. Now, all that to say, this is a case to be an obedient citizen of the government. If the government causes you to sin, to go against your moral convictions, for you to actually do something that you are directly doing, then you should not. But you're a part of the system. Folks, we're living in Babylon, okay? We are not living in the New Jerusalem yet. So when, I like when people are boycotting certain things. And I'm going to boycott this, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to use this. You can't, everything is evil. We're living in an evil culture. Really, I mean this. I'm not trying to exaggerate. But I'll see people that they'll be boycotting Target and then drinking Starbucks. I'll see people that are upset about something that's going on with Apple, and yet they go and shop on Amazon. It's all the same. It's the corruption of the world that we're living in, and all of it is immoral. But I say this strongly to say that Jesus says, just be a citizen, pay the taxes, do what you have to do. And in Romans, it says that you honor the government and honor those that are put above you. So no matter where you are in the political spectrum, I know most of us probably lean in the same direction that we do at the church. I want to encourage you to remember that this is not Jerusalem. This is not utopia. And this government isn't any more evil than the government that Jesus was ministering to at that time.